The voice of sharing, dünya ASEAN.
ASEAN Dailies. First and foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Good morning, this is Arlene.
Hi, welcome back. This is Grace.
And you are with us on our ASEAN Daily on a very beautiful morning. Together we will share with you all the latest news from Southeast Asia. First off, we have Vietnam. It is asking international aviation community to condemn China over the Spratly Islands fights.
So what's happening here is the nation, Vietnam, has called on the international aviation community to condemn China's act of sending planes unannounced to a disputed reef in the South China Sea, which was we discussed shortly last Friday, that how Vietnam was not really happy with all this China's activities on the South China Sea. And what happened even more is Vietnam reportedly logged about 46 incidents.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, which the country says endanger the air safety and also violates sovereignty. So the first week of January, which is just a few days ago, and has also sent letters of protest to China and the International Civil Aviation Organization over this issue.
And the letter was sent to the ICAO on Wednesday and Friday, asking the organization to devise measures to prevent similar move by China. What we are seeing right now, the issue has notices to several other aviation bodies and over 100 international carriers, urging them to protest China's action. Looks like Vietnam is definitely rallying all the countries, especially neighboring countries, to protest against China's move.
But we are talking about China here, and they have always been quite strong and firm on what they believe in to do, and that they have been very progressive in terms of doing their having their activities and their buildings, and then such as even having all those marking their territories in the South China Sea has been quite progressive. But from the Vietnamese side, they said we are working very hard, closely monitor these flight activities, and also to ensure this air safety in the airspace managed by Vietnam. And I hope that really this works out, even though Vietnam still seeking for the peaceful sort of agreement and a conversation with China. But here the doubt is, I'm not so sure whether it can happen in reality.
It's really hard to say because China has been conducting test flights to the Spratly Islands, where Beijing has been building an artificial island to accommodate a runway, among other things. There's so many things that is happening right now with China's involvement and with the reclamation activities there. It's highly unlikely that peace will be soon or that soon. Talking about peace, we all know that something is brewing really bad right now in the Middle East, and fears are growing over Saudi-Iran's role.
So there is the war of words, we call it, between Iran and Saudi Arabia that has escalated even more than before, with the two Middle East rivals swapping the accusations about this endangering the regional security and also targeting their respective embassies as well. Well, when we come to these two countries, Saudi Arabia as well as mostly this Iran, the conflict has been building up since quite a long time ago, and then there was no getting better, but it's just getting worse and worse. And in fact, like you mentioned before, the fears between these two countries has been just building, and it's growing over these countries mainly now.
Mm-hmm. And the feud first erupted last week after the Iranian protests stormed the Saudi embassy in response to the execution of Nim al-Nim, a Shia religious leader in Riyadh. He's highly respected in the Middle Eastern world, especially among the Shiites. And the incident set off a series of tit-for-tat diplomatic and economic reprisals.
And also, there is a report from the Cairo that Adel Jubair and also Saudi Arabia's foreign minister, he renewed the Saudi accusation that Iran was interfering in Arab affairs and also instigating a sectarian strife in the region. So then from there, Iran responded by accusing Saudi warplanes of bombing this embassy in Yemen, and that Riyadh was using the road to hurt peace talk in Syria. So it's really ongoing sort of a war of word, literally going on between these two countries. And of course, it seems that the gap between these countries will hardly be narrowed down in terms of a peace talk and also in terms of attacking each other.
And this is definitely going to hurt the Islamic world very hard, because we are now seeing the sectarian divide getting larger and larger. I mean, not to mention that we have a real threat with ISIS here. Now we have Muslims having to choose whether they are on the Shia sides or on the Sunni sides. We will have to definitely wait and see, because this has dwelled not just into a religious issue, but it is definitely a foreign policy problem that Iran and Saudi needs to address among each other, and not involving the Muslim world having to choose what to do about this. Talking about Southeast Asia, as we move towards what is happening here, we all know that Myanmar has a lot of ethnic conflicts, and this is an update about what is happening there. Myanmar army clashes with the ethnic Rakhine rebels.
So according to the Myanmar military says, several soldiers have been killed in more than 15 battles with the Rakhine army guerrillas. So this Myanmar's army had said that it had fought skirmishes against the Buddhist insurgent group in the impoverished Rakhine state, and they're losing the several soldiers to sniper attacks as well. So as much as the Myanmar whole nation is transitioning to democratic system, the power of military is still exists. And then, in fact, especially in Rakhine State, the military known as the Tatmadaw has clashed 15 times with the Buddhist Rakhine army rebels since about 28th of December, when it cleared the area, acting on the intelligence that AA insurgents were preparing to invade. This is according to the army-run Mawawadi, a news agency, and according to the government-owned New Light of Myanmar.
And what it seems now, several Tatmadaw personnel, including one commanding officer, were killed in the sniper attacks. Many others were injured, according to Mawawadi, adding that it has seized over 1,250 rounds of bullets and 44 mines. That's a lot of weaponry. And it says that the army also confiscated tents, rice, and medicines. Arakan Army was founded in 2009, like many other insurgents groups among Myanmar's complex ethnic divide, says it is fighting for self-determination. We have to understand that for so long, Myanmar has been ruled by the military regime, and a lot of them are forced to conform with the national narratives of how the nation should be. But now, as Myanmar is reaching towards a more democratic nation, seems like more ethnic rebel groups will demand greater autonomous area within its region.
Well, that's very true. And just to add on one more fact, is this Myanmar army is quite closely working with Kachin Independence Army, or we call it KLA. It's one of the largest ethnic militant group in Myanmar.
And moving on to the next one, which is about Indonesia. No more Javacentric infrastructure project. This is according to President Joko Widodo, and he has reiterated reiterated his commitment to building infrastructure on the outskirts of developed areas and in village outside of Java, allocating 314 trillion rupiah or equivalent to 22.5 billion US dollar in 2016 state funds to promote equitable development.
Well, this is definitely pretty positive news when it comes to Indonesia, as we all know about the infrastructure in Indonesia, that it needs to be improved, especially outside of the capital. And President Joko Widodo described the lack of infrastructure in Papua based on his visit to Dunga Regency, where roads remained unpaved even. So it took 4 days to travel from that region, Duga, to Wamena. And also he ordered the public works and also public housing ministry and army to surface the road soon. So this is very necessary that there are still areas in Indonesia that they are untouched when it comes to infrastructure, that it is good that President has realized and has noticed that some really needs to be done something about it.
Definitely Indonesia is so huge, so vast, and a lot of the areas are still lacking in infrastructure. But if Nuga is connected by road, prices of goods will drop by half. That's the great thing that the government needs to consider. Adding that the government not only paid attention to road infrastructure in remote and underdeveloped areas, but also in border areas. And furthermore, Jokowi explained that the infrastructure development such as dams, reservoirs, and ports would also increase the competitiveness of national products. We all know that Indonesia is working really hard to compete in the regional market with the AEC coming in now, and definitely things like irrigation, for example, is key to food security in the future.
For sure. When it comes to Indonesia with infrastructural development, will definitely have a lot of benefit and also impact the economy side. But when it comes to this specific industry in Indonesia, not only the money, but a lot of commitment needs to be done as well in terms of the security and also maintenance of the whole this infrastructure, as the country itself geographically it's really large. But likewise, he also underlined that the ports were also very crucial to improving competitiveness, and the ports are key because of the 2/3 of the whole country is water.
Well, water is one thing. Another thing that is definitely needed to manage is ASEAN's neighbors. And when I say neighbor, I think one of the least mentioned neighbor that we need to respond to is definitely North Korea. And ASEAN-North Korea response show that it is strongly needed for a strong leadership in 2016.
Well, this is a bit weird to hear about ASEAN and also North Korea's relationship. Well, ASEAN did not really condemn or express concern over Pyongyang's gross violation of this relevant United Nations Security Council resolutions. However, ASEAN's response stood in stark contrast to the widespread international condemnation of Pyongyang's test of a nuclear device, which they also announced that they have done successfully the under-the-water nuclear test recently. Whether it is true or not, that's how it was announced from North Korea, and also which it claimed was hydrogen bomb, like I mentioned before, and which drew a strong reaction not only from the US but also the Western powers, and also from North Korea's old friend and ally China as well as Russia.
So the whole world is condemning on North Korea testing its hydrogen bomb, but Southeast Asia has been so quiet about it. In fact, they seem to be not caring at all what is happening with its neighboring country. Conspicuously, the ASEAN statement signed by all the group foreign ministers lack the far stronger language featured in previous ASEAN statements on North Korea nuclear activities.
Well, my question here is whether North Korea will even listen to ASEAN's voice or not, because North Korea has not been listening to even US and other nations' voice when they actually did warn North Korea several times when it comes to nuclear test. But their decision when it comes to their own nuclear activities have been very firm, and in fact the group's weak response to the latest North Korea's action has already raised a question regarding the leadership of Laos, which is the chair of ASEAN this year, and also the throws some doubt on ASEAN's aspiration as the key regional player as well as the health of newly launched ASEAN community. All these will be questioned for sure because ASEAN is getting a lot of attention nowadays, especially after ASEAN Economic Community, and that people, not only people in ASEAN, but outside of, I would say, non-ASEANese, they're also questioning where does ASEAN stand when it comes to the problems, issues from neighboring countries.
Quite correctly, and in fact, one thing for sure is Laos itself lack a lot of the human rights protection and mandate. It seems like with Laos on board as the chairman of ASEAN, we will see a lot of loopholes in terms of its leadership and how it reacts not just to ASEAN but to the neighboring countries as well. We will take a short break. When we return, we will discuss on the economic side of Southeast Asia.
ASEAN Dailies. First and foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Welcome back, this is Arlene.
Welcome back, this is Grace.
And you're still with us on our ASEAN Daily. On our economic side, we want to update on what's happening with China. The ASEAN Development Bank president optimistic that China's economy will be growing at 6.7 for this year.
Well, it's better be growing in terms of economic growth, because when you talk about the whole global economy has been falling quite badly, and also that affected, of course, the currency rate. And in fact, the Asian Development Bank president, he mentioned last week that he's very optimistic that China's economy will post a healthy growth of 6.7% this year, despite all those jitters over the yuan's depreciation and also plunge in Chinese stocks. So a lot of countries are dependent on the Chinese economy, and then having this news will bring a bit of a relief to other nations as well. Well, in fact, the nation's slowdown was due to the policies to pay more attention to the environment and aging population, and also migration from the rural areas to cities, higher wages and higher per capita income. Currently about $8,300. They make it more difficult to maintain the very rapid growth rate of the past.
So that means that China has a problem with growth, but it seems like a lot of the economies, according to ADB, they are actually quite optimistic. For example, China's stock markets have little connection to the rest of its economy, but the two sharp price declines this week have focused attention on the slowdown in China's growth. The last plunge in China's stocks was set off by concern of Beijing allowing its yuan to weaken too fast against the dollar.
Correct. And also, according to Naka, he said he does not see the serious adjustment in the Chinese economy because there is much room to expand service industries, state-owned enterprise are being very reformed. And when it comes to social security, is also being boosted, and efforts are underway to reduce this income disparity between cities and rural areas. So what they have are really focusing here is to reduce the gap between the rates, the economic rates between the cities and rural areas. But what's more important is the whole nation is focusing to to raise its growth by 6.7 because of this downside or slow down when it comes to Chinese economic growth.
So the solution now is fiscal reforms, which include measures by local authorities suffering from high debt to increase their revenue, and to a larger extent are playing a role for central government in providing social security. Talking about playing a larger role in addressing countries' economic development is in Malaysia.
Right.
Najib will be chairing the fiscal committee to recalibrate a budget 2016.
Well, Najib had said that the recalibration of budget is to accommodate the changes in the global economic environment and also to be more realistic and accurate with the situation. Well, this can come up with a lot of responses from the public, in fact. But according to him, the certain steps need to be taken, including to optimize the spending and the role of government-linked companies. Well, when it comes to environment, we had a problem with haze, and that also fell to the sort of government-linked companies before, and a lot of whether which or who was blaming and finger pointing a lot of core sources. And Ahmad Husni said this year will be the challenging one, as the global oil price has also dropped from $48 to $31.
Well, not again dropping.
Yeah.
Seems like it keeps on dropping and dropping. But the objective of the symposium is to engage a student in digital marketing and to showcase how digital marketing will bridge the gap between the generations and enable companies to conduct business activities through digital platform. Right. This is on another news where Prime Minister Najib happened to be there. But to continue from the oil prices drop, that actually Najib never expected that the oil price will be going down, and it's a result that the revenue of the government will be affected too.
Well, dropping in the oil price is nobody can expect. But however, it is also the responsibility that the government needs to carry, because when it comes to Malaysian economic growth, there has been no such a positive news to it. Everything was just going down, including the currency. So if Najib is to chair the fiscal committee, for sure, it really needs to touch a lot of areas, and the budget 2016 really needs to be sort of considered again, whether it could be practical and then bring the reality to the public.
So what we will be seeing, perhaps a smaller budget for 2016 rather than the current budget that the government has put forth in fixing the country's economy.
Right.
On the other hand, let's move on to the arts and culture side of Southeast Asia. Myanmar Peace Prize winner, as we all know, is Aung San Suu Kyi, and the crimes against humanity, and this is referring, of course, to the Rohingya issue there.
Correct. Aung San Suu Kyi, one of the world's genuine heroes, like you mentioned before, she won democracy for her country, and she also won this Nobel Peace Prize winner. She is culminating in history elections in November, and her party won in the landslide. This winner apparently, she's also inheriting worst the ethnic cleansing that we can never heard of, the Myanmar's destruction of Muslim minority called Rohingya. Rohingya issues has been going on for some time, and it still is a problem in the country. But that has caused problems to other countries, surrounding countries, and that the very recent event, that Rohingya on the boat issue, was also brought a lot of controversial issues. So this will definitely need to be studied and also analyzed even further. So there were a few Yale studies that also have been conducted.
Yeah, and the study itself amounted the abuse of more than 1 million Rohingya as amounted to genocide.
Yeah.
A lot of the human rights group has been also echoed the same sort of sentiment about the genocide against the Rohingya.
Correct.
At the least, a confidential United Nations report to the Security Council also said that it may constitute a crime against humanity under the international criminal law.
And then also she seems to plan to continue this Myanmar's version of this apartheid. And she's now the politician, of course. She's oppressing the minority like the Rohingya is popular with the Muslim Buddhist voters. And a lot of people said Aung San Suu Kyi has been pretty quiet when it comes to Rohingya issue and whether in this she has even been considered about it. But she's very well known for earning a lot of prizes and also awards for peacemaking. So this should not be neglected anymore.
So definitely, I completely agree with that. And this sort of apartheid is definitely will be affecting the whole of Southeast Asia and not just Myanmar. Another country, Thailand, it has a beauty ad. I don't know any of you have seen it before,
right?
But actually I've seen it. It's about skin color. And the ad is called Just Being White, You Will Win. It has drawn so many criticism, making fun of people of a darker tone.
I don't know whether I should call you racist or some other cyst here. I just went to Thailand to tan my skin even more. So I won't ever be able to be successful, is it? And in fact, the new Thailand beauty advertisement, like you mentioned, being white is the key to success. And it has, of course, sparked a controversy and also resentment and drawn the criticism over this advertisement, which is, I would say, it's pretty unfair. Well, when it comes to Asian countries, being fair sort of does represent the social position, because back then being fair means you didn't really go through the hard work, and then all those especially the constructions workers, they almost tanned, and the people had all those stereotyping images when it comes to skin tone.
That's true.
And that carried until now, and it's even becoming worse than ever before.
It's really sad to see that in Asian countries they are so obsessed with skin color, especially a more fairer complexion.
Yeah, exactly.
And with this beauty company, they are taking things a step too extreme. And it's called Soul Secret, the beauty company.
Right.
Recently launched an advertisement to promote their beauty product, Snow, which feature famous Thai star Chris Ho Wang.
Right.
And granted, whitening products are popular in the Asian countries, but this commercial has ruffled feathers after the ad featured a dark-skinned woman. And when I say dark-skinned, meaning literally like the girl is painted black.
Exactly. And then if you have a white skin, it means you can't afford to fly to exotic places for vacation. For tan skin, white skin means too much work, so no holidays, right?
Could be. Could be.
It's a joke for sure.
But definitely, I would never tolerate such advertisement.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, if you just being white, you will win. It sort of give a very bad, I would say, impression, especially to young girls who are growing up, looking forward to their role models to be a good moral authority for them.
For sure.
Yeah. And without the advertisement peel, the whitening that they have invested will just vanish. This is what Hoang said. Hoang also promised that Snow will help customers in maintaining their skin to be fair. My question is, will you buy that beauty product, Soul Secret?
Well, I guess it's up to personal preference here, whether you want to be fair or not. But after all, it's really, I would say it's unfair to judge someone, even to discriminate dark or even fair skin from someone who wants to really, really work hard towards, their own target, and just because they are tanned and they are sacked.
Or it could be a very good marketing gimmick, for them to be in controversy, so that people know that, hey, there's this brand called Soul Secret. I don't know.
Well, that sounds even worse actually.
I know. Reverse marketing.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, that's all for our show today. Thanks for listening to our news commentary. And this is Arlene. You can always keep up with us on our social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
And also, don't forget to visit us, our website, reanasean.com. And when you're on the go, do download our app, Rean ASEAN.
Bye.